6.5 years old, and Facebook has 500 million members and is estimated to generate more than $1 billion in 2010. And it's the second most visited site next to Google. Joining me to talk about this social networking powerhouse as well as its profound effect on society is David Kirkpatrick. He is a technology writer. He's also the co-founder of
Techonomy. And I was at Fortune for 25 years, but now I'm off on my own, yes.
And you're the author of The Facebook Effect, the insider story of the company that is connecting and changing the world. David, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here with you, Ben.
This is an entrepreneur community, Vader News. And this book is about the most successful entrepreneur actually in the past 5 years.
Certainly, it's one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history in terms of the scale and the pace of growth. So, and I really feel like I was extremely fortunate to have gotten so deep inside the story of a company being formed out of nothing and coming to some huge scale. And I really, because the company cooperated with me so much, because Zuckerberg decided I was going to do a fair job, told everybody to talk to me. So I really got incredible detail about what it took to make Facebook Facebook and all the missteps and the, like the Photos thing. Most people don't realize how central the Photos app is to Facebook's history, and Zuckerberg actually resisted it, and how it happened, and how they discovered what it really ought to be, and how the people tagging, which became the central feature of it, was something they kind of stumbled upon. And, they made plenty of mistakes, and I write about those too.
Well, you want to talk about the mistakes, but just for the entrepreneurs out there, what do you think an entrepreneur, why should every entrepreneur read this? What do you think they get out of it?
Well, I think if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to know what happens with successful entrepreneurs, and this is one. So I think you really get a lot of appreciation of the importance of a vision, a clear, consistent, scopy vision, which Zuckerberg had from the beginning. And actually, we were just on stage, he and I, with Guy Raz of NPR this week at the Computer History Museum, and he was asked, what should entrepreneurs learn from your experience? And he said the importance of a team. And I will say the book talks a lot about how critical key people were in the history of Facebook, whether it was Sean Parker or Owen Van Natta or Sheryl Sandberg or Peter Thiel or Jim Breyer. There's a ton of them. And if it weren't for those people, Facebook wouldn't have become what it is. And there's a lot to learn about how Zuckerberg managed these people, or didn't manage them, or learned that he had to manage them. I have a whole chapter called Becoming a CEO, which is really about, this is a kid who was at the time only 20 years old, 21 years old. Right. And he suddenly had like 30, 40, 100, 150 employees, now 1,600. And he's still only 26. He had to learn on the job what it meant to be a manager, a leader, etc.
He's learned a lot. It's funny that you say that he's, team is important to him. But when on Facebook at the very beginning, it said a Mark Zuckerberg company.
Production, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg production.
Do you think
that's something he learned?
The biggest lesson he's learned?
I think that is one of the key lessons he learned, was that while he might have wanted it to be a Mark Zuckerberg production, a one-man show, that wouldn't have taken him very far. Right. And as he got growth, I think Dustin Moskovitz kind of is the one who taught him this, because here it turned out his roommate from college, who was right there in the room when he was making this service, turned out to be capable of being quite a successful programmer and an indefatigable worker, to be committed to this day in and day out. One of the things I think most entrepreneurs find is that, you have to have some people who just never quit. And it isn't always the entrepreneur themselves, but they have to have at least some people in the startup who are just tenacious. And Mark was kind of more scattered, trying other things. He had another project, Wirehog, until Facebook had 1 million members. He didn't drop it. He was like kind of only half committed, believe it or not. But Dustin was full force, 100% committed. And I think Mark learned from even just observing that and realizing, oh my gosh, this wouldn't have happened if, Dustin's now a startup of his own with Asana, and he owns 6% of Facebook, which is, some $1.5 billion, not bad, thereabouts in terms of valuation. And
so he's doing okay.
he stayed at Facebook for 5 years before he left. Yeah.
Facebook they've reached 500 million users around the world, and I heard you say that Facebook scale is requiring a new responsibility. What is that responsibility, and do you think Mark can handle it? Do you think he's prepared for it?
That's a really key question, which I think is an important one to discuss. That, Facebook now has all this identity data about 500 million people. 500 million people have felt comfortable putting a huge amount of themselves and their information into the system. And that confers a huge responsibility on Mark and the company. And it also interests governments, because identity information is information that has historically been provided and maintained by governments. I mean, we show our government-issued ID when we go through the security line, right? But Facebook may actually be an even more authoritative form of ID in some ways, because of all the authentication that we do of each other by becoming one another's friends, etc. And so the responsibility is both to the members and to the larger world, particularly governments and regulators, who are looking at this system with more and more scrutiny and bigger and bigger magnifying glasses, because they want to know that their citizens are being treated fairly, that the data is being protected, that the law is being respected. Law enforcement is using Facebook in a huge way in every country in the world, because people are in there doing things and they have all their friends and you can investigate things. There's a lot of issues that Facebook has to really learn to understand and be responsible for and reactive to, and this privacy stuff all comes about because people are nervous. Maybe they've trusted too much of their data to this company.
So is Mark the person to be able to steward this out of this sort of this new territory? I'm
not sure. I think he probably is. He could be. He's a wonderful product guy, and that's something the book, I think, explains in detail, how much passion he brings to engineering and the product work at Facebook. But is he the guy who really wants to be going out and meeting with the heads of state of countries all around the world, because that's the level at which this company is going to have to interface? See, this is what Eric Schmidt spends about half his time doing, is external relations, policy stuff. Larry and Sergey sort of stay behind the curtain working on the product, and Mark doesn't want to bring in an Eric Schmidt. He said that on stage this week. I hope he's capable of growing. He has matured enormously in these 6 years. Whether he can or not, I hope he can continue to mature at a rapid rate, because he's going to have to. Because I really do think if Facebook doesn't learn to much more maturely interact with all the regulators and the government leaders, it's going to hit a brick wall.
You were talking a lot about privacy concerns being a major problem, maybe one of the biggest problems. One author wrote, the more I use Facebook, the less I trust it. Is it reasonable to expect Facebook to overlook these security holes because it's sort of carving out this new ground, or is it something fundamental to their philosophy and their view on privacy?
No, they really do believe that people need to be given tools to protect their data. Absolutely. If there's security holes, they want to fix them. On the other hand, Mark wants to encourage people to share. But it's not the same thing as saying you have to make your cell phone number public, which many of us have on our Facebook profiles, but visible to friends only. And he wants us to still be able to do that. But the delicate walk that he has to make is he has to keep moving forward and pushing sharing while he continues even to improve the protections that he gives us for the most critical data that we don't want to share. So he has to give us protections and improve the ability to share. That's a tough thing. So I don't know where that's going to go. I think people, though, who say the more information I put on Facebook, the less I trust them, they're really saying they don't trust themselves, because they're putting too much information on Facebook.
I think that's a great point. David, in the next segment, we're going to talk about whether Facebook and Mark wants to take the company public, and Google versus Facebook. So stick around. I've been speaking with David Kirkpatrick. He's the author of The Facebook Effect, the insider story of the company that is connecting the world.